Good afternoon, Wills Wah with ABC News. The federal opposition has used question time to mock the government's plans to spend more than $120 million on a postal vote on same-sex marriage. Jane Norman reports from Parliament House.
The Senate has rejected the government's bid to hold a compulsory plebiscite on same-sex marriage, so it'll now press ahead with a voluntary postal vote. That'll cost more than $120 million. And during question time, the opposition leader Bill Shorten and his deputy Tanya Plibersek pointed out how that money could better be spent.
To help fund this year's energy supplement for 334,000 pensioners.
More than 1,800 residential aged care places.
The Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull says the coalition promised to give all Australians a say.
And we keep our promises.
Voters could start receiving ballot papers in September.
One Nation Senator Malcolm Roberts' future will be decided by the High Court. Richard Baines has more from Parliament House.
It's unclear whether Malcolm Roberts was eligible to be elected at last year's election. The Queensland Senator says he renounced his UK citizenship before the ballot, but only received formal confirmation 5 months after voters went to the polls. In the face of a growing push from other parties for a High Court investigation, One Nation leader Pauline Hanson will refer the matter to the court. Mr Roberts still isn't saying when his British citizenship was revoked.
These items will soon be before the High Court.
In the meantime, the Senator says he will continue to vote in Parliament.
The state opposition leader Matthew Guy says Liberal leaders will discuss the possibilities of standing down the party figure at the centre of secret phone recordings discussing the plot to split donations from alleged mafia figures. Mr Guy says he knows nothing about the calls that capture Barry McMillan discussing splitting donations from alleged Melbourne mafia boss Tony Medafri and 3 relatives into party coffers. He believes Mr McMillan, who's the secretary of the Dunkley Federal Electorate Conference, will move on. Mr Guy says it's up to Mr McMillan to explain the calls.
I know there were no donations that came from any of those individuals. What I said yesterday is fact. And if one individual is making contact with those people, that's a matter for him to explain.
The state opposition says an Auditor-General's report into V-Line shows that Andrews' government is letting down regional communities. The Public Transport Minister, Jacinta Allen, insists V-Line is back on track with nearly 600 new services added across the state. But the opposition spokesman David Hodgett says the V-Line's poor service, reliability issues and overcrowding are clear in the report.
This report shows that a lot more needs to be done and that Daniel Andrews hasn't planned for or prepared for the demands of population growth, and he's got a lot of catching up to do.
A woman has been taken to hospital in a critical condition after suffering burns in a unit fire in St Albans. Firefighters found the 60-year-old woman lying on the bathroom floor in the Margrave Street unit. Another woman and 6-year-old girl were taken to the Sunshine Hospital in stable conditions. The cause of the fire is being investigated. To sport, and former Essendon captain Joe Watson has announced he'll retire from the AFL at the end of the season. The 32-year-old was the captain of the Bombers during the club's supplement scandal and became the spokesman for the 34 players who were suspended for doping for the 2016 season. Watson was the league's highest individual award in 2012, but was declared ineligible for the award last year because of the doping case. And in the NRL, Melbourne Storm fullback Billy Slater says the heavy concussion he suffered against Canberra a fortnight ago will have no impact on whether he decides to retire at the end of the season. Slater was knocked out by a high shot from Sia Soliola, which saw Raiders lock suspended for 5 weeks. Slater says the incident won't have any bearing on his future in the game.
No, this hasn't contributed at all. I suppose what it has done is it's made me think about, concussion and that sort of stuff, and it just makes you think about that a little bit more. But in terms of my future, no, it won't have an impact.
To the weather, and there's a severe weather warning for the damaging winds in the central, southwest, north central, northeast and Gippsland districts, and a strong wind warning for the west coast and east Gippsland coast. For Victoria, a generally dry day, apart from isolated showers about Gippsland and the eastern ranges. On the bays, northerly winds of 10 to 15 knots increasing to 15 to 25 knots late this afternoon and this evening. For Melbourne, cloud increasing and the day's expected top of 17. Tomorrow, a possible late shower, windy and 18. In the city, now it's 15. This is ABC News.